The next place I spoke was at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. Now, in San Francisco, that was rather intimidating, and the Cow Palace at that time was its biggest venue. And I was notified by Paul Harvey that he had purposely brought his wife from Chicago in his private jet to hear me speak. More pressure. I remember standing before the rallies began. I was milling around a little bit, trying to loosen up as the crowds were coming in. And a reporter came up to me and said, who are you anyway? You're so all dressed up. I said, well, I happen to be one of the speakers. Oh, okay. What's your name? I said, well, my name is Doug Snar. I'll never forget this. She said, well, Mr. Snar, I've never heard of you. And I said, well, no one else has either. Well, I'll never forget the way she was so surprised by that, because all the rest were celebrities. So in other words, what's he doing on the program? Well, that speech was perhaps the most successful speech of the ones that I gave, because that speech received a double standing ovation, and that happened to no other speaker. And about halfway through, the whole audience rose and expressed their appreciation. Now, I had a lot of friends and ward members here in Salt Lake City fly on over to hear me speak. I'll just reference one, Jan Bagley and his wife, who later became one of our bishops. There were a number of them. And we all got together afterwards, and it was quite an affair. But after that speech, and then Paul Harvey introduced me to Angel. That was her name. He called her Angel, his wife. And he said, I brought her from Chicago to hear you. And she expressed very openly an appreciation. So I just kept thinking, if you can keep your virtue when you're speaking to crowds, you've got to keep your virtue. You just can't let it get away from you. Finally, as I was getting ready to leave the auditorium, and there's very thick, people are very, very thick, very thick, and I wanted to leave and go back into the back room and just kind of plop and get my breath, because I had so many people coming up, and just on it went. I heard a voice. And as we were walking out, and that voice was that I am the nephew of Benjamin N. Bogue. I am the nephew of Benjamin N. Bogue. And I could see them. There were two of them, a nephew and his counterpart. I don't think it was his wife. I think it was his sister. And they were yelling at the top of their voice. So I wanted to stop and talk to them, obviously. But I couldn't. I was just pushed. There was too many people coming. There's no way that I could stop. I just pushed right on out. And so their voice just started to fade as I got away from them. And that was the last I saw of them. And that haunted me. Oh, I wanted to talk with them so badly. Well, a few months later, I got this letter right here. And this letter is not too long, but I think it's quite informative. Dear Mr. Snar, our daughter, Janet, and our son, Benjamin, recently attended a meeting on positive living at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, where they heard you speak and tell about the effect of Benjamin Bogue on your life. Benjamin Bogue was my father's brother, and I knew him very well. He was born on a farm in Wabash County, Indiana. His parents were Quakers. Later, he attended Earlham College at Richmond, Indiana, but went back to the farm after 2 years because they made fun of his stammering and stuttering. He then developed a system and cured himself of the stammering and stuttering. I think that he noticed that he could sing when he was playing the piano, and he did not stammer or stutter. I believe that he started the school in Indianapolis in 1900. He had students then from all over the world. My uncle had no degrees from universities and therefore was not recognized by them. However, he was well informed on the subject and had a large library of books related to his subject. In my opinion, his method was made up of simplicity, which he inherited from his Quaker ancestry. He could come right to the main issue without wandering around. It took a year of my hospital work in Indianapolis at the Methodist Hospital. I took a year, he said, of my hospital work. I have seen the Bogue students late at night, buying a newspaper, down at the Circle. That's put in quotes. They took their time, even though they were in a hurry to catch a streetcar. Sincerely, Willis J. Bogue, M.D. Over. P.S. Uncle Benjamin was married, but his wife died of cancer. They had no children. I am the closest relative. Our children, Janet and Benjamin, whom you met, were so touched and thrilled by your speech. They are still talking about how wonderful you were. They came home and said that I must write to you. I hope that we may meet sometime, and I wish you the best. We hope that you will continue to help troubled young people. Willis J. Bogue. Now, in the paper, I just took one little quote from that article that appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle on the event. And it says, quote, in a separate paragraph, start simple and build success upon success, end of quote. Recommended Douglas T. Schnarr, viewed in the motivational set as a coming superstar who one day will offer his own course of self-improvement. Then it says, positive thinking rallies as a stable of 14 men it can tap, ranging from such men as Norman Vincent Peale, now entering his 8th decade of yay saying, and Linkletter and radio commentator Paul Harvey, down to such lesser knowns as Schnarr. Gosh. Oh, I'm glad I am lesser known. Who broke into the circuit just 2 weeks ago in Charlottesville, they said South Carolina, well, it's North Carolina. Quote, he stole the show. The crowd went crazy. What a story he's got. He overcame every adversity. In his youth, Snar was rendered almost mute in public because of a speech impediment that locked his jaws. He told the story of how he overcame his handicap in the emotional, revivalist style associated with tent meetings. Tent meetings. Believe in yourself, cried Snar, toward the close of his 50-minute bit that brought the crowd leaping to its feet in an ovation.